And I feel like, if both of us just continue our purpose of what we feel like we're supposed to do, like things just line up easy for you. And I've just found life in general. If something is, really challenging and there's a lot of obstacles, then maybe that's not what I was supposed to do.
Right.
Not, yeah,
Yeah.
not to say there won't be some hard days that we have to keep going, but I just feel like a lot of times when you're living just, what I say in the flow state, that things just line up for you and fall in place. So that's kind of how it's been for this.
Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Dana and Jennifer. As usual, we're jumping right back in here, so make sure you've listened to part 1 first. In the second half here, we talk more about specific situations with legal implications that CRNAs may find themselves in, the rates and fees for different expert witness tasks, as well as more information about the educational course and how it's structured. Enjoy.
One, it was like another rock on top of a rock on top of a rock, and you end up just carrying this load that is just, it's just all consuming. That's the best way to say it.
Well, it's amazing how you can get such extensive training and spend years and years of your life, and then it can be gone like that. It really doesn't take as much as you might think for these things to just be gone.
I mean, failure to write down a number for entitled CO2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about that one element was basically the linchpin of kind of everything. And you think, gosh, how many times have I not written down a number for entitled CO2?
Yeah. I mean, I know that I have.
Thousands.
Yeah.
So, but the great kind of once I came out of all of that, actually in the middle of it, even after when the consent order for Georgia was happening, and I was working with my attorney on a pretty regular basis with that, because we went through probably, 15 different versions of the consent order until I got to something comfortable that I felt comfortable enough signing. He came to me and said, hey, we really would like you to be an expert witness for us. And I said, well, what exactly does that mean? And he said, we really would like you to come on board and defend other CRNAs who find themselves in the position that you found yourself in. And I said, sure, I don't really know what that means, but yeah, I can do that. He said, well, I mean, we'll send you depositions. We pay you by the hour. You read depositions at home. And then you might do a deposition, might go to trial. We pay for all that stuff, and you basically just defend other CRNAs. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what I do. I was telling Jennifer it's really cool because there's a lot of days I get to stay in my pajamas all day long because nobody cares what you're wearing or what your hair looks like or if you have makeup on when you're reading a deposition from home, because they mail them to you. They send a paper form, or they'll send you a zip file to open, or they'll send you a thumbnail, and you basically, I just sit here with my little blue blocker glasses on.
Oh yeah.
And I push my little start stop button on my little timer here, and I read depositions. And for every hour it takes me to read a deposition, or an affidavit, or a complaint, or medical record. And it varies across the state what you can make. So I'm only speaking generally for what I decided to charge. So for all of that type of stuff, it's $300 an hour.
Okay.
If I do a deposition, It's $300 to travel to the deposition, $300 to travel back from the deposition, and $1,500 to do up to a 4-hour deposition. And then if you do a live trial, it's $5,000.
Okay. That's pretty significant. I mean,
it is pretty significant. A live trial, probably you speak for maybe, depositions can take a long time, because basically a deposition is like a precursor. They do a deposition to find out what you think the standard of care is and whether you think the standard of care has been violated. And when you serve as a CRNA expert witness, obviously you're not going to be an expert witness for the defense if you think that the standard of care was violated, because obviously you can't defend that. Mm-hmm. So you basically read over kind of the basic outline of the case, and you talk to the attorney and you tell them whether or not you think you can defend the CRNA, and if you can defend the standard of care, and if that standard of care was met. And then you read all the other depositions. They send them to you throughout the course of and these can take years. I mean, COVID pretty much shut everything down. So I did, was it in April? I think it was in April, the last one I was telling you about, Jennifer. Literally, they had stopped everything. And then they sent me like 7 or 8 depositions all at one time. And it was like, oh my God. So that ended up being like $4,000.
Yeah. Where
I just kind of sat and read all these depositions, and which just blows my mind, because I mean, that's one day. Yes, they're time consuming and they take a lot of time, but I can put clothes in the washing machine and then put them in the dryer, and I can, be doing other stuff as opposed to practicing anesthesia, and not being able to do anything else except for practice anesthesia. So it's ended up being a blessing for me, for sure, because this is the only problem with being an expert witness as your plan B, is that you have to continue to practice anesthesia. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to, within 5 years of an event, so say something happens in 2018, within 5 years of 2018, I have to have been actively involved in that type of case. For example, like if you're reviewing an eye case, but you haven't actually done an eye surgery since anesthesia school, mm-hmm. You're not really technically a good expert witness, because you really don't have current experience. So
so what I'm hearing and processing is that it seems like there would be a fair amount of opportunity here for lawyers that are, basically defending CRNAs, and, perhaps the patients' cases themselves, where they're trying to get something out of this, because they feel like they've been wronged. Mm-hmm. So there's room on both sides for that.
Yeah.
And then you've also got room for the different specialties as well. So obviously, if it's a problem with, a GI case or something, like colonoscopy gone wrong, or whatever the case,
right.
Then you need to be practicing that actual thing. So you have to, either you're a very well-rounded provider, you're working in an environment where you have, that experience with all mm-hmm. of those things on a regular basis, or you just have a certain specialty that you really focus on.
Correct.
So do you find, I know that when I went through school and everything, they said, well, OBGYN, those are some of the more litigious areas.
They're the number one.
Yeah. So can you get into a little bit more about that? Which of the areas that you found to be pretty litigious, or the ones coming across your desk?
So the ones coming across my desk, so this is basically what happens. My attorney will reach out to me, or any attorney, because there's a network. They kind of have a network, and they'll say, this is a CRNA expert witness pool. And they'll call and say, would you be able to be an expert witness for, I think, let's see, the last one I had was a pain management case. Yes, I've done pain management anesthesia in the last 5 years, or not necessarily in the last 5 years, in the 5 years surrounding the time of the event. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think the one I'm doing right now happened in 2015. Well, I was actively doing pain management in 2015. I'm not as actively doing pain management as I was then, but I was doing it daily or on a regular basis then. So I personally do a lot of GI cases, pain management cases, any type of outpatient surgery setting, because I'm a 1099 and I basically do outpatient surgery center type things.
Yeah.
So like if if they call me for a case for say a spinal or an epidural for OB, I don't take those cases because I don't have the expertise anymore. They called about a central line case, and I was like, I haven't done a central line since anesthesia school in 2006, so I can't. I can tell you how they're supposed to be done, but I really can't tell you the standard of care currently because I haven't done them. So I think you end up kind of getting more specialized just based on what you're currently involved in case wise. So I haven't done any OB cases because I haven't done OB, thank God, in a long time, since probably 2007, 16, I think is the last time I did OB. 2015, I think. So luckily, because I hate OB, so that's just fine with me. But I do a lot of outpatient. I did outpatient pediatrics. So one of my cases is a pediatric case. I've done outpatient oral surgery, outpatient ophthalmology, outpatient plastic surgery, outpatient GI. So I kind of have a broad kind of base of outpatient surgery type things.
Yeah.
I cannot be an expert witness for an open heart case. I haven't done an open heart case. Also, thank God, since anesthesia school. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so Jennifer, I do want to bring you back into the fold here. I know we've kind of been on the expert witness thing, but you guys are doing something that's really unique here, where you're taking a specialty and you're creating I'm guessing that it's a webinar series, but I'm going to let you take over now and just tell me more about how you're structuring this CE course.
Sure. Do we have one more time for one more question from Dana?
Sure. Yeah.
Just on the note of you brought up about the types of cases, because she actually brought this up Sunday night, and it was kind of a really good take-home point for our webinar on Sunday night. But the case that you're currently defending, you said, was because something happened that was the surgeon's fault, and no one from anesthesia went out to talk to the patient or the patient's family member, and now they're suing anesthesia.
Yes, they did not sue the surgeon, because the surgeon went out immediately while anesthesia was still in the room and basically said, anesthesia screwed this up.
Yeah.
And it's not my fault. And I'm really, really sorry that anesthesia did this to you. And I apologize profusely. And that surgeon was not named at all in the lawsuit, which is fascinating. We were talking about, like, how far does an apology go? That was kind of one of our topics. And we were saying for anesthesia, it's really difficult because even when something goes wrong, you're still involved in the case. You don't just walk, the patient is still asleep most of the time, or in PACU or whatever you're doing. You don't just walk out and say, I need to go say sorry. But the surgeon can, and the surgeon does many times. And it's fascinating to see how quickly a surgeon will throw you under a bus. Like, just like that. It was anesthesia's fault. My part went great. My part, no problems at all. Everything was fine. So,
and how often does anesthesia bite their tongue when it comes to
all the time.
A surgical procedure that, oh my goodness. That just makes my blood boil.
So, that was one thing that was hard for me with my case, because I was at an outpatient surgery center and the patient was transferred to a hospital. And I pretty much I never saw a single family member, because she literally she came in, I didn't meet her family before we started the procedure. And she left via ambulance, and I didn't have the opportunity at all. I didn't have any way to even get a hold of anybody to find out what was going on. Everything that I knew was coming from the surgeon. And in my particular case, the surgeon did not put anesthesia under the us.
Yeah.
She didn't do that, and I give her credit for that. But she had a lot of other issues on her plate, so there was no way she could really do that. But yes, it is a fascinating side of it, because we don't get the opportunity that often to go out and talk to family members and say, I'm real, because there's a lot of studies that saying I'm sorry goes a long way in litigation, and whether or not you're sued. And anesthesia just doesn't get that opportunity very often.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
and I
true.
think that's kind of a good take home point for anyone listening to this. Maybe even if you're not interested in being an expert witness, but just if you're happy working in the OR, if you do have a bad outcome or something that didn't go as planned, make sure you do get to go talk to the family, or even if it's the next day in the ICU, because that's, we said the other night, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. So, as an anesthesia, go represent yourself. As soon as you can. So yeah, back to your question about the course. The way we have it structured is you can actually go and opt in now to be notified when it's released. It's crnaexpertwitness.com. And we actually have the course will be ready in July, but you can get opted in now. We have it on pre-sale. And there's 2 CE credits that are available immediately. And one of those is Dana's full story that she told for an hour in Nashville. It was a live presentation.
With a lot more details.
Yeah, a lot more details about the case.
We summed it up very quickly here.
And even if you just want to go opt in, we'll send you just her story. You can listen to it, just the whole story for an hour. And if you decide to buy the course, you can go ahead and get your CE credits for it. And then we have another great lecture in there as well. It's another one of our favorite presenters that does a really good ethics lecture that's also in that the pre-sale, some of the bonuses. The course will be where you can log in your members area, watch it whenever it's convenient for you. It'll be about, I think we have 12 modules that are an hour each. One of them maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you'll get 13 credits with the class and then the 2 bonuses also. But we've tried to make it where it's easy for people that, some CRNAs work a lot. So you can watch when, maybe if you're on an in-house call and you've got some downtime, or if you want to watch it at home, just log in, you can stop and restart as much as you need. But I feel like it'll be a good opportunity for a lot of people that are looking either just for, some supplemental income, or what we see as a lot of moms who, they get into anesthesia and this may be a little bit more than what they had anticipated for their commitments with trying to be a mom and, work anesthesia full time. It's hard to balance. And I think what Dana's going to teach, this opportunity, is great for a lot of moms who want the ability, like Dana said, that you can work, take a break, take care of your child, go put in some laundry, schedule your schedule around your children's schedule. So I'm super excited about the opportunity to do this with Dana. And
the other things, just to jump in and add, we're going to talk about what to do if you find yourself in a lawsuit.
Okay.
My attorney is going to guest appear on several of the modules, and we're going to talk about how to defend yourself, kind of steps that you have to take, the legal process, what things have to be proved, what the different terms mean. We'll have a module on compact states and what that means for CRNAs. We'll have a module on consent orders and what that means for CRNAs. So it's kind of a whole it's 12 hours of legal stuff that impacts CRNAs, and then probably 4 or 5 hours of it is kind of dedicated to CRNA as an expert witness, and how you get into it, and the training and the different things that you have to do. So I think it's gonna be really cool. I think it's neat that we're gonna have my attorney as kind of a guest. He's gonna kind of bring in some real life cases, and he does all medical malpractice cases. So he's been practicing for years. So we're going to bring in examples of different cases, and how maybe a lawsuit might have been avoided, or how somebody could have charted differently, or how we're going to have a bunch of examples of how to kind of do things differently. So I think it's going to be cool, because even if you don't want to become a CRNA expert witness, it's a lot of other stuff that can help you just in your everyday practice of anesthesia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what were some of the challenges in putting this whole thing together? I know that it's not easy to set up a conference or anything. So, I mean, and this is a completely different realm, this is
Yeah.
creating, video content and whatnot. So what were some of the challenges you guys faced, particularly with, I mean, you guys aren't in the same place, I'm assuming.
Correct. I'm in
So,
Georgia, and Jennifer's in Texas.
okay.
So this is the challenge. I think COVID has really helped in this arena, and Jennifer can talk more about this, but we have become accustomed to this style of learning now, and this style of communication, because we've been trapped in our homes for a year. So people are interactive with Zoom, and we do a lot of the presentations are just Zoom presentations with Jennifer and I talking just kind of the way we are now, but with slides and, different,
some screen shares.
screen shares and different stuff. So it'll really be set up kind of, I mean, I think for this is probably exactly the style that we're going to do. And then when my attorney comes, it'll be my attorney and I, kind of talking, and we'll be asking him questions, and Jennifer will have we'll have a set of questions that we're going to ask. And that I don't feel like, I think Jennifer is an expert in all things continue education related. So the biggest thing for me is I don't know how to use Zoom. And we talked about that earlier. I'm like, how do I get a cool background? I don't know. Do I push a button? What do I do? So that's my biggest challenge. But Jennifer has, taught me all of that, and we've worked through all that stuff. So I think right now it's just word of mouth and getting it out and letting people know, and getting people excited about the content of the course. Because nobody's really excited about continuing education. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, we don't want to hear about beta blockers anymore. We don't want to hear about, I don't even know what I don't want to hear about anymore. There's so much stuff I don't want to hear about. So I think this is something that there's not a lot out there. I mean, there's just not a lot of continuing education on this particular topic. So I think it's going to be neat to. It's not completed yet, but I think it's started and we're in the process, and Jennifer's going to have a lot of editing to do to kind of get it to its final place. But because it's due July 1st, is that what we decided, Jennifer?
Yeah, July 1st.
Coming out July 1st. So
And I agree with her. Really, no challenges so far. I think a lot of times when you're doing what you're supposed to do, things just line up for you. And I feel like I said again, Dana has lived her purpose, that she took this horrible situation and has made it into something good. And by her sharing this, it's already helped a lot of people, but it's going to help a lot more people. So I feel like this is needed by our industry. And I feel like, both of us just continue our purpose of what we feel like we're supposed to do. Things just line up easy for you. And I've just found life in general, if something is really challenging and there's a lot of obstacles, then maybe that's not what I was supposed to do.
right.
Not to say there won't be some hard days that we have to keep going, but I just feel like a lot of times when you're living just, what I say, in the flow state, that things just line up for you and fall in place. So that's kind of how it's been for this.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this has been such a treat having you both on, and as we kind of approach the end here, I want to give you guys, each a chance. If you haven't had a chance to say something that's maybe on your mind or whatever, now would be that time. Any last kind of thoughts or advice for people wanting to get into, either the CE business or the expert witness area? What's some advice you have for people that are looking for their plan B?
I think Jennifer just really summed up really well just now. I think when you're looking for your plan B, if you're having to work so hard at making that plan B work, then maybe that's not the plan B. So, I think when you talk to people who their plan Bs have been successful, they've naturally kind of evolved. Not that it's not hard work, but it comes together and it works. I know that Jennifer, she came back with this idea to do continuing education, and she worked hard at it, but it came together, and she really felt like this was what she needed to be doing. And honestly, I was terrified, absolutely terrified when my attorney was like, do you want to be a CRNA expert witness? And I'm like, I don't, at this point in my life, based on what I've just been through, I am barely an expert at like getting in the car and driving to work every day. Like I'm not good, like I feel so defeated and so deflated and everything. And then I did my first deposition, and literally we finished, and my attorney looked at me and he's like, man, you knocked that out of the park. And I was like, all right. Like, so it was like, yeah, he's like, you did a phenomenal job. And it was that moment I was like, maybe this is the silver lining, and this is what I need to be doing with this, because it was not easy, but it was easy, if that makes sense. It came together, and I felt really good afterwards. And then since then, as I read these depositions, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say when this question comes up in my deposition, because I know exactly the answer, how I would answer this differently, or how I want, so I think expert witness is not for everybody. It's not easy. And there's some plaintiff's attorneys that are real bullies, so you kind of have to have thick skin, and you kind of so that's what I say to Jennifer all the time. Like, I'm excited about doing the module, but I also want to say at the end of it, like, this is not everybody's gig. Just like, selling wine. I could drink a lot of wine, but I'm probably not going to be good at selling wine. Or, like, everybody has their thing that they get into that they're good at. And when those pieces fall together, and it's neat to see, like, apartment investing. I would never invest in an apartment. I would have no idea what to do. You know what I mean? And it just wouldn't feel natural. So,
well, thanks for the plug there. I'd like to plug my own business on Call Capital.
No, that's why we would lean into your expertise, because we wouldn't know. So
yeah, that's right. No, and some good points there, because I do think we all have our own paths that we take, and our own expertise that comes out of pursuing those different pathways, and so I love that. So ladies, how can folks get a hold of you, get a hold of this course, and find out more about you individually?
I'm gonna let Jennifer answer that. She's the queen of all this information.
Yeah, and just to end on your last question too, like, for any CRNA out there, like, no matter how hard days you may have and you feel like you're on the hamster wheel, like, there are other options. Like Dana said, it may not be legal consultant for you, but there's something out there. You're never stuck in what you're doing. You can always transition to the next phase of your life. So no matter how bad it looks, whatever you're facing, just know that it can be a lot different a year from today. Whatever you're faced with now, and your whole life, your whole outcome can be different. So, but to get a hold of us is CRNAexpertwitness.com. You can go and say sign in to be notified about the course. You'll immediately get access to watch Dana's story, her presentation in Nashville. If you have other questions, help@painlessce.com is a good way to get a hold of us. And yes, we're both on Instagram and Facebook as well, but probably the fastest way is obviously just to go to CRNAexpertwitness.com, or the customer service at Painless CE is help@painlessce.com.
Yeah, and Bobby, if you haven't logged in to CRNAexpertwitness.com and signed up, when you sign up, you'll get to see the whole story of my Nashville presentation, and you'll get to get all the little details that we didn't throw in this go around. But
no, I'm absolutely interested.
Just to kind of just to hear how it all played out, and how it just went from bad to worse. And at one point I said in there that I said to my husband, how could it possibly get any worse? And then it got worse.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't ever want you to say again, how could it possibly get any worse? Because it can. So,
well, for all of you horror fans out there, it sounds like we need to sign up for this course and find out what it's like for a CRNA to go through their own personal hell. But, you came out smelling like roses, though. And I think that's the takeaway here is, like you powered through this, and you gained more expertise, and you gained just more advantages in how you see the world around you now, that I'm sure that shapes you moving forward, that you can't help but be affected by that.
It's absolutely true. And actually, we're going to talk about at the end of the module, we're going to talk about second victim syndrome, and we're going to talk about PTSD in situations like this. We're going to talk about coping mechanisms for not just if you find yourself in a lawsuit, but in any area of your life, like how strategies to kind of move forward from loss or a lawsuit, or just different, that kind of, I think that kind of is one thing that Jennifer does with a lot of her courses, is she kind of ties it all back into how to overcome and how to come out on top of it, and to find the silver lining in things. And I think that's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys again for being on the show. This has been such a pleasure, and I think that you guys have just dropped a lot of great nuggets here for people to grab hold of and move forward.
And hopefully little teaser nuggets.
Well, exactly.
Of what they might be getting, what they will be getting.
Exactly. But no, thank you both for being on the show today.
It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Jennifer and Dana have put so much thought and effort into crafting this expert witness course for CRNAs. It not only teaches you how to protect yourself from lawsuits, but also about the ins and outs of the legal system for interested providers. And let's not leave out the obvious. This can be a really lucrative side gig for CRNAs across the country. While it certainly may not be for everyone, Dana and Jennifer have made it easy for you to learn more and to get some CEs in the process. I love how they tied it all together nicely at the end here too. While Dana certainly went through a lot of hard times with her own license, jumping into the expert witness game was made easy due to her newfound expertise. I also appreciated Jennifer's suggestion of finding a certain flow in life. If a certain side hustle idea becomes too hard to implement, it may mean that you're not doing what you are supposed to be doing. Sure, starting and keeping up with a business can be pretty hard work, but there are parts of it that should nourish our souls along the way. Otherwise, it just becomes another job. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.